Okay, hello year 12. Having rambled on for 24 minutes in my last video, I'm hoping to keep this one just a little bit shorter. And the theme of today's video is about the representation of gender in online media. Now, gender representation is something that we've looked at quite a lot so far on the course, and I actually think it's one of your real strengths as a cohort. I think you're really good at analysing media texts in terms of gender representation. And when we're considering this topic in relation to online media, our approach to it is exactly the same. So all of those issues that we've looked at in prior units, such as when we did magazines, when we did advertising, all of those same theorists are relevant for gender representation in online media. Everything that we've done there, we can pretty much apply directly to online media. However, I do think online media also offers up some interesting things which some of the other topics haven't addressed. Some of which we actually covered in yesterday's lesson, because obviously online media is very different because the people involved in online media, excuse me, they construct the representations themselves. So I want to begin with talking to you about gender socialization. And I hope you remember socialization is the way that societies or people in societies, they learn their norms and their values. So they learn what right and wrong is through the process of socialization. They learn these things very young through their parents, through their teachers, and also through the media as well. They're constantly exposed to people telling them how they should act. And that sort of, through a process of osmosis, allows them to kind of navigate the world, to understand what they can and can't do. Now, when we're talking about this in relation to gender, we're talking about it in exactly the same way. So we learn what it is to be a man, or we learn what it is to be a woman through the way that we are socialized. And this could be through the toys that we're given as children. This could be to do with the clothes that we're encouraged to wear. This could be to do with the people in media who we're encouraged to look up to, our role models. All of these different aspects come together to socialize us and to teach us what it means to be our particular gender. Now, this question, I think, goes without saying. Online media really, I would say, now contributes heavily to gender socialization, perhaps more than any other media texts, because younger people who are still very impressionable are really into online media and probably consume more online media than they do any other type of media. I think the way that online media presents different genders can play a really, really, really strong role in young people's understanding of this. But this isn't just restricted to young people, it's old people as well. You know, there are people like myself, and I've described in previous lessons about how I watch certain vlogs and read certain blogs who are written by men who are talking about football, etc. And without perhaps even realizing it, that may be influencing me and socializing me in the way that I feel about my gender and how I feel about being a man. You know, very stereotypical of me as a man to have such a passion for football. So, pardon me. So if we just look at some examples that I've got here, these are some of the most high profile influencers on YouTube. As you can see, they're ranging from 800 subscribers, which is, you know, plenty, all the way up to Zoella and Alfie there, who've got a joint 11 million subscribers between the two of them. And the reason why I wanted to linger on this picture for a moment is, even just looking at this, I think we see a real like a common trait which kind of stems across all the way that these couples and these influencers are presenting themselves, partly in terms of the way they look, in terms of the kind of like glamour that's involved, but also partly in the way of how they present themselves as being very successful. And this gives this sort of idea that in order to be a proper man, that you need to be successful, or to be a proper woman, that you need to be successful. So both in terms of the way that people look, but also about the way they think and the way they perceive the world, I think these content creators, these influencers, can play a really big role in socializing people's genders. And if you think about the work we did to magazines, I think that we can, as I said at the start of this lesson, I think we can carry a lot of the ideas that we discussed when we did magazines over to online media. Because don't forget that women's magazines in the 1960s, which is the era that we looked at, they were completely ubiquitous. Everyone was reading them, very much in the same way that nowadays everyone is influenced by online media. Women's magazines were in many ways the most popular form of media for women in that era, in the same way that online media is pretty much the most popular format for women who are interested in fashion, makeup, hair, etc. these days. There's a little quote by a woman called Germaine Greer, who's a feminist writer. And she wrote that magazines financed by the beauty industry teach little girls that they need makeup and teach them to use it, so establishing their lifelong reliance on beauty products. Not content with showing preteens how to use foundation, powders, concealers, blushes, eyeshadows, eyeliners, lip liners, lipstick, and lip gloss, the magazines identify problems of dryness, flakiness, blackheads, shininess, dullness, blemishes, puffiness, oiliness, spots, greasiness, that girls are meant to treat with moisturizers, fresheners, masks, packs, washes, lotions, cleansers, toners, scrubs, and astringents. So what we kind of get from this quote is, and I think Germaine Greer spoke really passionately about this, is that women from a very young age are encouraged to always look more beautiful. You might remember we covered the concept of beautification, the fact that women are always encouraged not to be content with their beauty, but actually to make sure that they are as beautiful as they can be. And I think online media, and particularly these vloggers such as Zoella and the like, they play a really big role in this, because they will often talk about the fact that people should love themselves and they should kind of appreciate their beauty and be comfortable in their own skin, etc. But at the same time, they push all of these ideas and notions about the fact that if you want to look good, then you have to look a certain way, and that involves doing all the things which Germaine Greer has outlined here. So if we take this to Zoella now, and what I'm talking about now is actually going to be your main task for today's lesson. So when it comes to gender socialization, I'd say that Zoella is someone who's a really interesting case in point. And there are three main questions that I want to be the focus of your research, which you're going to do after you finish watching this video. So the first one is to what extent we think Zoella reinforces gender stereotypes. So from her videos, from her website, from her social media, do we think that Zoella is playing into these classic gender stereotypes that we have become really familiar with in this course? Is she promoting ideas of beautification? Is she promoting ideas of domesticity? Is she encouraging women to think in a certain way? When she talks to women, this is addressing the second question, does she use a specific mode of address which appeals to them? So the way that she talks to women, both in terms of the words that she uses, but also in terms of the manner in which she does this, so the tone that she adopts, the way that she looks, etc. Is this gender specific? Is this particularly feminine? And then lastly, what are the things that she actually chooses to cover and explore? And this is quite an interesting topic with Zoella, and you should do quite a bit of research into this one. So the things that she talks about, are they particularly gendered? So does she only talk about topics which would appeal to women? And does she only talk about topics which are quite stereotypical in their application to women? I think I don't want to push you too much in this direction, but there are some things that Zoella has talked about in the past which are actually, I think, quite interesting in this, because she also has talked about some topics which go beyond just femininity and which go beyond just hair, beauty and makeup. She's actually talked about some quite serious issues in the past. So when you come to do your research, have a little delve around and see what things you can find that she's spoken about. And what I've got here is links for you, because you're going to use them when you do your task. Zoella's website, her YouTube channel, and her Instagram. I keep on saying this, but don't forget, you need to be going to Zoe Sugg on YouTube and on Instagram, not just to Zoella, because the Zoella accounts are more about her business. And the task I'm going to ask you to do once this video ends is I'm going to ask you to try to find 2 examples from these links above, these 3 links, which we could use to answer these questions. So those 3 questions at the top there: to what extent does Zoella reinforce stereotypes? To what extent does she use a gender-specific way to address? And what topics or interests does she cover or explore? I want you to answer those 3 questions in note form for using these links here. I'd like you to try to use all three of the links. I want you to try to use her website, her YouTube channel, and her Instagram. However, I only want you to find 6 examples in total. Okay, so just 6 examples from those 3 different sources. The examples that I'm asking you to get at the moment, they are absolutely crucial, because these examples are going to be examples which you'll use in your final exams. So please make sure that you are getting good detailed examples that are specific. So when you go into your exam, you will need to have these ones that you can use off the top of your head. So please make sure you get nice detailed examples, clear examples, which you can use to answer questions about Zoella. So I'm just going to give you a few examples that I've found here to illustrate what kind of things I'm looking for. In the left-hand corner, you will see an image from a Zoella video, and the video is called My Holiday Outfit Diary, A Week in Outfits. And in this video, I've just kind of chosen this particular image here because what we can see here is Zoella wearing quite typical clothes. She's wearing, I can't actually see whether it's a play suit or she's wearing an outfit of some sort, which is quite a feminine outfit. She's obviously on holiday and she's kind of like showing off the clothes that she's wearing. And I just sort of thought this was quite an interesting image because obviously it plays into things that we would say that were quite stereotypical about wearing very feminine clothes, etc. She's also showing off her bikini, which you could argue might be sexualizing her. Although I think in that regard, it's really useful to think about some of the things we've spoken about before with regards to post-feminism. If she wants to show her body, why shouldn't she be able to show her body? And someone who thinks she's sexualizing herself is actually sexualizing her. So there's some interesting things that you could talk about with that sort of image there. On the right, we've got an image from her Instagram account, and this is similar to one of the ones that I showed in a previous video here where she shows off her kitchen. And as you can see, her kitchen is typically immaculate, very clean, really kind of painting this picture of Zoella being this real domestic goddess. Not saying that she's not either. I've got no idea what she's like in the house. And then we've got these flowers here as well. And obviously flowers are something which we stereotypically think of being very feminine as well. So in this image too, we can see some really classic feminine tropes coming through. And I think both of these we could see as probably conforming to traditional stereotypes which we would have about femininity. This one here is an interesting one. So this is taken from the Zoella website. And the Zoella website now features mostly content which is written by her team these days. There are some posts by Zoella herself, but most of the posts are actually written by her team. And one of the posts I saw here, which is written by Team Zoella, so it's a member of the team, was about Kylie Reid. And Kylie Reid is a novelist, and she's also a woman of color. And she is a very successful novelist and someone who actually I think could be seen as a real role model. So on the one hand, you've got images like this, which you could say were quite typically feminine and kind of like pushing ideas about how women should look and also pushing ideas about how women should act. On the other hand, you have perhaps got some examples here of some slightly more progressive representations of women in her text as well. And maybe that shows that it's a little bit singular and straightforward just to say that Zoella is one fixed way, that actually maybe there's some other things in her media empire which actually suggest that her representations that she shows are a little bit more complex. And that's really what I want you to explore in those examples. Both how she conforms to these representational stereotypes, but also how in some ways she might subvert them as well. So on to the task which I want you to do. So firstly, I would like you to make sure that you've written up the notes from this video and from the PowerPoint slides and submit those to SharePoint. I'll send out the folder with the email. And I also want you to do the application task, which was on slide 7, which is the one I showed you just a moment ago. I'll just go back to it here so you can see. Just on here. So I would like you to complete this task as well. So I want you to think about these 3 questions. To what extent does Zoella reinforce gender stereotypes? Does she use a gender-specific mode of address? And what topics and interests does she cover or explore? Are these gendered in a particular way? I would like you to try to find 2 examples for each of these questions. If you can, what would be wonderful if you could find one example which both conforms and subverts. So for this first question, for example, to what extent does Zoella reinforce gender stereotypes? Can you find an example from one of these 3 links which shows that she does? And can you find an example which shows that actually she challenges some of those stereotypes as well. So you're looking 2 clear examples from each one of these 3 to answer each one of these 3 bullet points, and you should find your examples from these 3. If you can get at least 1 example from each of these 3, that would be wonderful, rather than just getting 6 from the website or 6 from a YouTube video, because the wider range of examples you've got, the better. So you're looking for 6 examples, 2 for each of these 3 questions, and you should get all of your examples from these links. Okay, guys, I hope that was useful. I will be live on Teams for the next hour, so if you've got any questions at all about anything I've spoken about today, please let me know. But you've got 2 tasks to submit. You've got plenty of time to do it. Good luck.